Okay, welcome to the broadcast here. I'm going to be talking about a follow-up on the baby boomers bullying the next generations and what actually is going on with the baby boomers. It's this follow-up from what's wrong with the baby boomers. And then this came up today, and it was perfect for what we're going to be talking about. And it's titled How Boomers Are Hurting the Next Generation. So let's get right into it.
Here's a question I got for you, Tom. Which burden is a bigger burden? For example, kids are a big burden on the parents, right? When you have kids, it's a lot of work. You don't sleep. There's a reason why this panel, out of four of us, two of us have kids, two of us don't, and we're all over 40 years old, okay? There's a lot of responsibility with having kids. It's a lot of work, okay? And it's constant. Last night, we're dealing with plumbing. Kids got to take a shower. You got to put them to sleep. You got to get up early. It's just a lot of work when you have kids. What burden is more painful? The burden parents put on their kids for having not made proper decisions in life to get the kids off to a good start, or is the bigger burden the kid that is so responsible, that is always embarrassing the parents, drugs, financial issues, constantly being in trouble, not making the right decision? Which is a bigger burden, parent to kids or kids to parents? Tom, you know what question I'm asking?
Yep. Well, as a parent, I think it's kid to parent, because you feel embarrassed, you feel ashamed, you feel responsible. You were supposed to raise this kid and turn him, her, it, or they into a responsible citizen.
Yeah.
And that would just, to see my kid failing, I feel pain for their pain. And then I feel embarrassment. And then I feel responsible. And then I feel, what could I have done different here? I think that's a bigger burden than the burden that maybe a parent puts on a kid to perform, even though we've seen suicides in kids from parents that made straight A's an absolute deadly
Let me ask a question in a different way. So, for example, Tom.
Okay, before we go to the next question, most baby boomers, all baby boomers, basically, have all had children. Now, I'm one of those ones that didn't. I'm not the norm. And as you can see, Tom is more in my age group. And, Patrick is younger. I think I've got 20 years on him. And so this is a setup with the kids, how dealing with the kids first and what the expectations of with kids. So just know that most baby boomers have had children, and they're probably having grandchildren already. All right. And depending if, they had them when they were 18, those kids could be grown up also. So the whole thing first is what to do with kids and what that's like. And then he's going to ask another question.
So, our job is to take care of the elderly. Got it. So, I'm taking care of my dad. You're taking care of your mom. We're supposed to take care of whatever this person needs, mom needs, that person needs. We got to take care of. Okay, fine. How much of that, where the burden of the prior generation being passed down to the next generation, is okay? What is the responsibility of our generation to the next generation?
Got it.
Economically, is it okay to just kick the can and saying, listen, guys, you guys are young. One day you're going to have to take care of this. You pay the price for this. Your grandma's old. Your dad is old. It's on you. You can handle this. You're only 28. You're only 35. I'm 69. At what point is that burden an unfair burden the prior generation is passing on to the the whole thing about weak men create hard times create. So strong maybe a generation made weak choices and the next generation is paying the price for it. How much of that is okay for a generation to pass down so much burden on the next generation?
Different kind of question. I think what we're doing to the next generation is unconscionable. And I think what they're carrying is they have to figure out how to make it in the most expensive, economic times of all time, number one. And number two, now they're going to be told the only way to take care of all these boomers, and doesn't the last boomer retire on Thanksgiving this year? I think it is between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, the last boomer retires or hits that first retirement age milestone. And now it's like, hey, listen, all the boomers, yeah, the trust fund's going to be out. The Medicare and Social Security trust fund, you can look up, you can find that chart, Rob. It's going to be gone. And so we're just going to keep, that little dial that says 6.5%, 7.5% Social Security. We're just going to keep turning that dial because there's two trust funds that are in there. I think it's the medical trust fund that they're related to Medicare and Social Security. And both of those trust funds, there's charts out there that say they are dead in roughly 11 years. 11 years, the trust funds that are in there go to zero. And when they go to zero,
that's not true, by the way. First of all, I didn't think I would get any Social Security, for sure. I didn't think I'd get it. My father kept saying, yep, you're going to get it. I'm like, well, there's not going to be any money left. He said, just have faith you're going to get it. So yes, when he's talking about in 11 years, it's actually, there's going to be less money, and it's supposed to drop 25%. Now, I don't want to question Tom. He's a smart guy, but believe me, I'm the one collecting it, and it's a very important dilemma for all of us. And just to let you all know, as a baby boomer, you can't stop working. Now, these guys are, they got money, and they're going to go into it about this. Okay. So they have money. So they'll be able to do some things as he'll go in. And you also have to take in consideration that something could happen, something for the better. They're always saying the worst is going to happen. They even said it years ago that it was going to be less, even for me, way back then, that, oh, you're not going to get as much, as you were supposed to, as you paid in. So if you're paying it in, you're going to be, they tell you as you go along how much money to expect. So you got to, they're painting the picture. Just he's saying there's not going to be any money. So, if you do your research, you'll see. Yes, they're saying in about 10 or 11 years, they're going to have less money. So it's going to actually go down in a percentage. And that's why I'm taking the side that, ladies and gentlemen, not all these baby boomers, have been able, have all this money that they're taking advantage of the next generation. Literally, all of us are, and this is my opinion, we're all in the same position here in that you need more money than ever. So if you picture a baby boomer who saved some and thinking that because of the way the prices were back at the time, that they would be able to live some fancy life. It's just not true. It just absolutely, it's not true. Now, there's going to be a lot of things talking about here when you have money. And there's a lot of baby boomers that I know that are very successful, have grandchildren, travel all over the world, have houses all over the world, go to Super Bowls every year, And a lot of those people you've never heard of. So let's go ahead and continue on here.
The only choice is to hyper-tax those who are working, and that is an unconscionable burden on the next generation.
Okay, so here's by the way, the last boomer turned 65 in 2031, so we still got a few more years left. The last 46 to 64. So if you look at 64, 36, 23, the oldest boomer right now is 59 years old or something like. They got 6 more years, so it's 20. The youngest boomer is like 57 years old. So 1946 to 1964, I'm just doing basic math. So 57, they got 9 more years. 8 more
I may
years.
have been reading about the 59.5 rule. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 59.5 is going to be probably in 2 years. But the youngest boomer turns 65 in 2031. Regardless, it's 76 million of them, and it's a lot of money. So here's a part about that for me, it's deeply concerning, and no one wants to have this conversation. We can have this conversation because we're not looking for your vote. We don't need your vote. We're not running for nothing. Mm-hmm. We don't need Congress. We don't need your money. We're not running for governor. We're not running for president. We're just having conversations, okay? As a sales organization I run, the best way to describe this, Tom, I think you'll understand this. So in our business in insurance, when you're around for a long time and you build a big agency, what ends up happening to you is you start making millions of dollars, but you don't work anymore, okay? Not the guy that starts the company, because you're always working, because every lawsuit, everything comes to you, right? But if you build an agency within a company, it could be New York Life, it could be Transamerica, it could be Primerica, PHP. You can go on so many different companies. If you build a big block of business with a lot of insurance agents, you can all of a sudden one day wake up saying, hey, babe, we're making $2 million a year and we ain't worked. That's the least I've worked in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then that generation is famous for sometimes not wanting to do the work, taking the money and wanting to change the compensation structure to benefit them. Because what ends up happening is the longer you're in the business, your override and commissions on insurance, the renewals kind of goes away because you're no longer building new offices. Mm-hmm. So the override is going away from you. So all of a sudden you catch yourself going to $200,000 a month in income, 220, then it goes to 180, 160, 140, and then you level off like at $100,000 because you're no longer growing your book of business. Very interesting, very simple. This happens quite often. The people at the top, the elderly, the people that are no longer working, start saying, we need to change the compensation plan to pay us more. This is not fair. And they take comp away from newest agents who are just starting their practice. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yep.
So the small business owners that are starting their practice, they are now getting a less of a comp than the person that has been around for 20, 30 years. If you can go to Twitter, Rob, yesterday I responded to the, what do you call it? The incredible Hillary Clinton. Such a sweetheart. If you can go, she did not respond, but you got to go to this tweet.
I wouldn't be here.
Zoom in right there. Okay. And go to her tweet. Her tweet says, as of today, it's been 14 years since $7.25 minimum wage was last raised. President of the United States, Biden, supports raising the wage to at least $15. MAGA Republicans have repeatedly blocked an increase. What do you have against millions of working families making more? My response, what do you have against small business owners? Mm-hmm. Fortune 500 companies would love to see minimum wage increase. They can afford it. It's the small business owners who risk their life savings that can't. You're indirectly helping eliminate competition for the big guys.
Great
okay?
Point. Weird.
So there is no response. What are you going to say to that? So, okay, guess what? Walmart loves the fact you raise minimum wage. Joey's Market, that's been there for 73 years, passed down 3 generations, now is out of business. You're like, dude, that was fantastic. Thank you, Biden. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Bernie. You eliminated this guy that was a pain in the ass because my market in this area just went up 13% because I was losing it to the other guy. Okay. So indirectly, if we don't talk about this, the older generation, I believe, you can come at me all you want. I don't need your vote. I'm simply sparking a conversation. I believe the older generation is being unfair and bullying the younger generation and not thinking about what they're going to be having to do 10, 20, 30 years from now because they're going to be dead. And that's absolutely.
Okay. There's a lot to bite off here. Now, he's making sense. But what's going on here is the 1% that he's talking about. Most of the people, even the baby boomers, have their own small business. And inflation has taken, a lot of people's profit or a lot of people's living wage. And so I understand what he's doing, is what he's saying. The big corporations, and this is what's been happening in the last few years. It happened to me. You lose a business and you're literally, the thing hits the fan and you have to replace more then what you lost, you have to, because of the way inflation is. And so he's making a really good point in the sense that they're not only wanting to make more money or by giving less, but they want to wipe out the small guy so that they have to go to the big guy. And that's why even in my town, in the city that I live in, it's a growing city. And when you look around, you see all these new businesses that are popping up, but they're not small businesses. They're not local. They're not able to get in with to compete against the corporations. So, for example, a gentleman here wanted to start a wine tasting, something like that. He has a wine tasting bar, wine tasting bar with appetizers. And because he was close to these huge corporations, they would not let him do that because according to them, they could only have so many restaurants and, so many bars. And so here's a guy who's been saving his money forever to retire to start a bar. And he can't do it because it's zoned. It's zoned. And I know where it is. And it's like, wow, that's perfect. It's in the middle of all this stuff. And so it's the 1% that's really doing this. Okay. It's the 1%. And I just want to really make that clear. The small guy, doesn't matter your age, doesn't matter your generation. They don't want you. And that's why you see, even here, it's all big corporations, which means none of the money stays local. And the only way to make the money is to work for them, maybe at a decent wage. But again, that's what they want to do. They want to wipe it out. So let's continue on.
Absolutely unfair. It is a burden that some of these guys cannot handle. And these politicians, guess what they say? This is the line. You ready? Here's what the media will ask a politician that's running for office. Will you say right now that you have no plans of changing any benefits to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid? Can you say it right now to everybody that's watching this? I have no plans of.
Yeah, of course.
What you're saying is, I have no plans of taking care of the next generation that's going to suffer the consequence of your burden, that they're probably never going to have Social Security benefits, Medicare, and Medicaid. So to me, I think when you think about parents, what responsibilities do we have to the next generation? What responsibilities? What do you think a good parent, what does a good parent owe their kids? What do they owe their kids?
And the thing is here, and I'm someone who takes care of my mother. And you'll hear Patrick and, he takes care of his. And so there is a serious burden, but you have to decide if that's what your duty is. And it is mine, but it doesn't run in my family, but it is mine. So let's keep going.
Great parents. What do we owe our kids?
Well, we owe them structure, discipline, true love, not enabling love, but true love is I love you so much that I'm going to put boundaries around you to prevent you from making mistakes. It's not that I love you so much I'm going to bribe you with ice cream to get you to cooperate. So it's true love, boundaries, respect, discipline. You put that in a package, that's what you owe your kid.
Let me ask this question. Is there a tradition where your parents, for the longest time, would help you with the first 20% down payment on your house, or a way to get you started, to say, hey, son, you're just getting started. You're 28 years old. You're about to get married. You're starting your career. You're about to buy $1 million house. Guess what? I'm going to help you with the down payment of the house to get you guys going. Okay. That's what I'm going to be doing. Do you think that ought to be a part of the responsibility of parents to get their kids started in a climate like this.
Absolutely not.
Tell me why.
I mean, if you're rich, you know, that's a conversation you could have. Some people elect to maybe say, I have friends who are well off, and they'll say, well, we'll pay for your wedding, or we'll give you a down payment on your house. I don't know a lot of people whose parents are just like, yeah, a couple $100,000, got you. I don't think that's a thing.
I didn't say a couple $100,000.
Or, okay, 50 grand, whatever the number is.
50 grand. By the way, I don't know.
Do you know a ton of families that do that for their kids?
I think in the Middle Eastern side,
of course,
that's a big part of the Middle Eastern culture.
Maybe I got to start hanging out with Middle Easterns more.
But let me ask you a question. In America, I'm actually sincerely asking this question. If you have a son or a daughter, who pays for the wedding in America?
The daughter.
The family of the daughter or the family of the son?
Typically the daughter.
The bride's parents. It's a long-standing joke. Show up, shut up, pay up. And that's the joke they always make about the bride's father.
Is that tradition still going on today?
For the most part, yeah. I mean,
would you say it is?
Yeah, it is.
They said he's supposed to, so you know, they went off on a tangent about the wedding. In my generation, and you heard Paul. Hey, did you give him anything? You know, some. I mean, there's some that can, but I'll just say this. The day after I graduated from high school in 1975, the very next day, I've been up partying all night with my friends. I go get home, wake up, damn near hungover, and I walk in, and there's my dad as I come out of the bedroom. And he says to me, it's time for you to go. Like, what? He goes, I'm not kicking you out of the house, but it is time for you to go. I have other mouths to feed. I can't afford you. I can't send you to college. I don't have money for you to move out. It's time for you to make a plan. And make it as soon as you can, because I can't do anything else for you. And I can tell you right now, boy, I was living in a fantasy world in high school, because he brought me to reality the very next day. And in the long run, he had told me, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that. I said, no, you did the right thing, because I needed to make a plan. He brought me to sobriety quick of life, that you have to go. And most of the people in my generation all wanted to leave as soon as possible. And I'm sure these kids really would like to leave. But, you know, the way things are, the prices and everything. Now, I want to see what Paul has to say here.
You're saying it is?
The last wedding I went to, that's how it was.
Let's keep that tradition going, guys.
Come on,
let's not stop that.
In my circle of
Thomas,
my circle of friends,
lobbying for the other way around.
My circle of friends are.
He's got 2 daughters.
It's still happening this way.
Okay, got it. So
that means you're going to be 50-50 on this thing. Someone will pay for your boys?
I will gladly want to give this way and this way.
Yeah.
I want to gladly be a flag carrier to do this way, because without them, I'm not around. And without them, I'm not around. But I think there's too much of burden coming down from here in this generation. I don't think right now a 22-year-old, 25-year-old graduates in a better climate than they were in. Like we're having a conversation. Peter was asking a question last week. What was the question you were asking? You're like, Pat, how is Brandon going to buy a house? He says, and I've done well for myself. How are these people going to buy a house? I don't understand how people are coming out of their careers. How are you going to buy a house? The thought of buying a house today in your 20s, and you're a regular person, not you're a peak performer, you're the top guy sales. No, I'm talking a regular person. How does a regular 28-year-old person that got out of college, they got a job starting at 50 grand a year, then you get 3% raise. Let's say you get 4% raise every year, okay? 4%, you go from 50 to what? 52, 54, 56, 58, 60, 63, 66, 60, what? 69, 73.
In 10 years,
70.
Right?
It's 15 years before you're at 75. After taxes, you're only making $4,000 a month. The mortgage payment's $3,000 a month.
Yep.
So if we go the way we're going right now, the average guy coming out of college making 50 at 22, 23, 24, 25, you ain't making 100 till you're 40. So if you ain't making 100 till you're 40, you're paying 30% in taxes. That's $70,000 a year. That's $6,000. How the hell are you going to buy a house? A $600,000 house. First of all, you need 20% down payment. 20% on $600,000 house is $120,000. Where do you find $120,000? You've been paying taxes every year. You need someone to help you out. So to me, I think the messaging's got to be from parents is, one, what value are you passing down? Okay. What burden are you going to be lifting off your kids? Okay. Is it like if I'm sitting here as a parent thinking, and if I have to decide between, let's just say I'm a regular person, I don't have the money that I have right now. Say I'm making $92,000 a year. I'm having a conversation with my kid and saying, hey, Teek, Billy, question for you. Would you rather have me pay for your college, or would you rather have me give you $50,000 at 25 when you start your career or you get married, and I help you out with XYZ? When Jennifer and I were getting married, I had money in the bank. I asked Jennifer the following question. I said, babe, do you want a house? Do you want a big wedding? Or do you want a big ring? I'm not doing all three. And by the way, for us, ain't nobody paying for the wedding, dog. Not from neither side, because neither of our families have money.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
One's from Arkansas and, LaPorte, Texas, and the other one's a cashier at a 99-cent store. My dad brought a 99-cent Clippers hat from 1990s to say, hey, here's a gift. But they gave us love. That's what we got. We got nothing else. So I'm sitting there saying, which one do you want? And she says, babe, I don't care. I have money. You know how much I paid for Jen's ring when we got married? $3,000.
Wow.
I'll give you the exact number, $3,300. She wears it till today. Okay?
Awesome.
Till today. We kept the cash. We rented, and I said, I'm not buying a house because we're going to put this money into our business.
Good.
And we had a big wedding. And our wedding, 450 people. It was great. We had a great time. Fantastic. It was good to go. But I think those types of conversations need to be had more today to say, hey, kid, I can pay for your college, or you can figure out a way to get through the next phase. And then when you get married, I got $25,000 for you. And when you decide to buy a house at 25 years old, once you show me you can make $80,000 a year or $100,000 a year or $60,000 a year, I got $50,000 down payment to give to your house. I think parents have to also realize we have some kind of a responsibility for them, because the burden is a big burden right now on kids.
Yep.
Massive burden on kids right now. I don't know if this is a comfortable conversation anybody wants to talk.
I didn't, I lived in houses, but I never had a house. Literally until I got married. So I didn't get married till about 10 years ago. So having grown up with no money, like no money, you had to figure it out. Always was doing side things. I think that most people, especially men, I could have gotten married many times, really 8 or 9 times in the course of my life. Part of it was just, I wasn't ready. Part of it was, the expense. I was a musician, in Los Angeles, trying to make it in the music business. So, I was mostly selfish. I mean, the thing was, my dad, when he told me you got to make a plan to move out, well, instead of moving out, I moved halfway across the country to Los Angeles. So that was not his plan. So he had a plan for me, was just to go get an apartment and I'd still be near the house. My plan was to go and do something big, get in the music business, start a business. And I ended up doing both of those. I didn't make it in the music business, but I did have a messenger company. And I did pretty good. But each time, and it came down to getting married, they wanted to have kids. And I just wasn't ready for the kids. Now here you see these perspectives here. There's kind of 3 of them, Tom, he's like, yeah, I'm going to give you something. Patrick goes, I'm going to give you something. Paul says, yeah, I'm not giving you nothing. Now, Paul doesn't have any kids. so he can talk a little bit more smack, you know, than everybody because he doesn't have kids. And if you don't have kids, you know, as a baby boomer, and these guys are not only Tom looks to me as a baby boomer, then you just have much more freedom. You know, people have always asked me, do you regret not having kids? I'm like, no, I have no regrets. None. I already made the decision in my 30s. I'm on my spiritual path. And I, you know, whether or not it was selfish or not, you know, people say, well, your generation won't pass on. And who knows if we're even going to be here, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue on.
Talk about, because the burden will be on a lot of boomers who are sitting there saying, no, they need to take care of us.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you know,
I don't care if it's comfortable or not. I think it's a very necessary conversation. I've told my kids, and I think Bailey, the golf girl, is probably listening right now because it's summer and she and the BizDoc babe tune into the podcast.
Hi, Bailey.
But hello. She says hello.
Hello.
And what I told her, I said, look, you will come out with no debt. I will make sure through your college education there's no debt. But every penny you get of scholarship, whether it's athletic scholarship, academic scholarship, every penny that you can offset through your attainment is yours. And we're gonna talk about how we use that when you graduate. You want to use it starting out, fine. You know, weddings are a different thing. But Pat, I've told them, I've said, look, this is what I'm going to do. This can help you start if you're starting a business, whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not infinite here. I'm not an infinite piggy bank. This is what we have for college. If you contribute with good academic performance and stuff, then some of that you're saving for yourself. And that's a contract that I've made with her, and she gets it.
Well, let me just say this. Your daughter's very lucky to have a father like you, because you've done very well for yourself. You love your kids a lot. You're an ideal father. You're amazing. Most kids don't have that type of parent in their life, meaning they might.
He said it. There's the key right there. Most, you know, they say the baby boomers are bullying. Well, no, it's not. You've got the 1%. You have the people who Paul is talking about that are luckier than they could ever be. I know that my brother, you know, he was able to take care of his one child very well. He only had one. And so, you know, to have that blessing and an ability is a great thing. But most everyone growing up as a baby boomer didn't get anything, and you had to go out there and do it yourself. As I started graduating from high school, I started putting on big, huge parties, you know, to make my car payments. I mean, it's rough out there, and it's going to be rougher than ever. I mean, literally rougher than ever. But my answer here is more of, with all the generations, is we have to work together. And what is going on here is this division. I mean, Tom, with his great relationship with his lovely daughter, it's a great thing. And I'm not putting that down at all. It's great to have that. With Patrick talking about his children, what he's going to do, taking care of his father. I think he's going to bring that up here a little bit later. But for them, they're in a different world. And it's more like how Paul here is talking. He's a young man. I think Paul's just turned 40. This is just a little bit longer. Stick with me. There's a lot of more information.
Might have the love, they might have the structure, they might have the values, they might have the principles, but their parents aren't in the top 1%, top 10%. So they got to figure it out elsewhere. I love the example you gave of the 25-year-old who's making 50 grand, then he's making 52, then he's making 55. There used to be a time in America, a generation ago, where a working man can have one job. The wife could stay home with the kids. She didn't need to work, and he could have paid for the family, the mortgage, the car, the dog, the fence, the boom, the everything. Those days are long gone. So women work these days. Now it's a lot of times it takes 2 incomes to raise a family. You know, a lot of times they joke and they say that the richest people in the world are dinks, dual income, no kids. And because kids are expensive, I think they cost about $250,000 a year from 0 to 18. And it's a situation these days. And women are making more money than ever. And they're looking at average men and they're like, why do I need you? I make more than you. That's why they're all going after the top 10% of men. And there's a whole dating situation going on these days. According to the Department of Agriculture, I don't know why they're doing this. It costs $233,000 to raise a kid from 0 to 18 unless the kid's working on a farm. That figure is likely closer to 288. But another point, you talked about the burden. You know, the baby boomers have sort of done the millennials and the Gen Zs dirty, right? They've run up the debt. They haven't saved a ton of money. You hear Bernie Sanders constantly complaining, you know, 50% of all boomers are going to retire with no fucking money. But as Vinny's favorite word, constituents, that's who's voting. So the politicians are always going to pander to the old people because they're going to come out and vote, and they're going to vote on the key issues, which are entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Those aren't going away anytime soon.
And it's them.
Yeah.
And the politicians are also 70 years old.
We're talking about the same
exactly.
group.
So you're looking in a mirror over here.
But let me
the same cohort.
Let me tell you what I can't stand when parents do to their kids. I just got to tell you, and I've been around. I was trying to study in my 20s about parenting, and I'm like, yeah, my dad didn't do that. My dad never said make money so you can take care of me. He's never once said that. Matter of fact, I had to force my dad to move to my house. He never wanted to come be a burden on me, ever. He never wanted to be a burden on me, ever. Like, it was hard for.
And that was my dad also. My dad lived by himself till he was 91 years old, almost 92. And he never expected that at all. Now, of course, I would have liked that, but again, he was in another state at the time, and so the whole thing is, we're not expecting that either. Okay, a lot of baby boomers, we're not expecting your kids to take care of us at all, and this is why, you know, the emphasis is on being healthy, being as healthy as you want, as you can. So that you can still do your yard work. I still do my yard work. You see? And that's the whole key, is to go as long as you can and last as long as you can.
For him to already move here. Now, don't get me wrong. He's settled now. He's doing great. He's happy, but he's still working till today. But I think when I see parents do stuff like this, well, you know, Joey here is going to grow up to be a professional Major League Baseball player, so daddy doesn't have to work anymore. You know what a turnoff it is when I hear a father say something like that? You know what a turnoff it is when I'm watching a De La Hoya documentary that's talking about, my dad told me, hey, mijo, you got to go be a boxer so we don't have to work anymore. We can stop being poor. Hey, why don't you do that? Why didn't you do that? Like, why? Like, sales leaders, I'll see them talking to their sales guys, and they'll say stuff like this. Hey, you know, you need to go around appointments at 10 o'clock at night. And what are you doing at 5 o'clock? You're at the house watching the Lakers play? You need to run appointments at 10 o'clock at night. You're telling your sales guys to go. How come you're not running appointments so you can get the override? It's this concept of people asking others to do the work that they themselves didn't want to do. Why not set the example for your kids? Why not set the example of you improving yourself in your 50s, in your 60s? There are parents right now that are 60 years old. They're thinking they're dead. Bro, Tony Bennett died at 96. You got 35 more years of living to do, and you're only 60 years old. This concept of, you know, my body hurts, I'm in pain, I'm in this, I'm in that, totally get it. My dad, if you look at his hands, okay, if you're around my dad, his stomach, he, you know, what do you call it? When the intestines, he's got a hole in it. So
protruding?
No, his intestines comes out all the way out of here. He has to wear a belt to push it in. Okay,
it's an abdominal hernia.
Abdominal hernia is what he's got. He walks like a hunchback of Iran. Okay, Dylan makes fun of him every time he walks. Dylan does the walk. He says, "Daddy, this is how Papa walks," and he does his walk, and they're so funny. His hands, arthritis. Okay, the guy was in a hospital a couple months ago. Never once has he used that as an excuse to not work and improve himself. Do you know how much relatives of my dad, my mom said, couldn't stand him because he kept working? And relatives that we had in our family since 40 years old have been bitching about not being healthy, and they were 10 times healthier than my dad. and my dad had 13 heart attacks. This is not a comfortable conversation to have. I totally get it. Like, I'm not going to make any new friends today. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to walk in Palm Beach. A 72-year-old lady is going to come and say, hey, how are you? You're an asshole. You know that? I can't believe you want me to work. No, I think the burden is being passed down, and these guys' dreams is not becoming a reality. So can we save this thing in 1 year? No. This is something that can be fixed in 20 years. This is not a 1-year fix. But we can't sit there and say, let's keep passing down all this stuff to the next generation. Screw them. They got to figure it out. They're younger. I don't think it's fair.
Hey, if you enjoyed this short.
So it's a great. I love watching that podcast. That's one of my favorite ones. And the reason why I really like it is just because you have the age groups. You have, they all have kind of their own podcasts and everything like that. And so, it's a get down with the get down, and I really appreciate that. So really, my final thoughts here with this is, as a baby boomer, I can never stop working. I actually thought I could slow down, and then I knew there's no way. I'm going to be working for as long as I can, and one is doing the show, but really to be able to do labor or to use my mind to sell something, it's never going to end. I've already come to grips with that. So most of you, and my thing with the younger generation is, you see people who are the content influencers and people who are compromising themselves. Do your best not to compromise yourself, especially the ladies. There's other ways, okay? And I can tell you, when I was 20 years old, and I'm not trying to, knock anything and brag how it used to be back in them days. It's still these days. If you're trying to get to the next level, you have the energy of, you're just barely out of the teens. So your energy is really high. And I'm going to tell you, I used to work 80 hours a week, 2 full-time jobs a day. And I had to get out and save my money and go to the next level. And so I know this has been a little bit longer, but I hope you got something out of it. I've been wanting to just talk about the baby boomers. I'm basically going to be talking about other generations. So if you want to know some other stuff, I have some videos here, and especially on the one that I did last. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you on the next video.